Digital Circus has officially broke me. It's been quite the journey for my mental health these past 24 hours. Trying to do Deltarune Roaring Knight without the Shadow Mantle was one thing, that took me about the length of Oppenheimer, but I eventually prevailed. So I figured even though I know what kind of show Digital Circus is, surely it can't mess me up that bad. The trailers made the Cops and Robbers game look so fun. Going into this episode, I knew ahead of time this was going to be the more Jax-focused one, which it definitely was. Regardless of how you feel or felt about Jax prior to this episode, I don't think it's a crazy take to say he's one of the most fascinating characters in the show now. Some of the scenes involving he and Pomni left me legitimately uncomfortable in the best ways possible. Like I hadn't felt this uncomfortable from watching Digital Circus before this episode. Even outside of the Jax-Pomni stuff, this episode still managed to sprinkle in some great character moments between Ragatha and Kinger, as well as Gangle and Zubul. Episode 5 had a bit of that, but the way episode 6 went about it felt much stronger in my opinion. So let's jump into this review, breakdown, rambling.
What?
To start off, the vibes from the end of the last episode are about the same here. Pomni and Jax are still pretty chummy, although we never really found out what Jax ended up showing her. Meanwhile, Zubul's hiding from Kane since they found out the next adventure plan is supposed to take place inside the circus itself. To just talk about the Kane stuff now, because it is relatively important, the cracks are really starting to show with this character. The main circus crew becoming more and more vocal each episode about how they don't like his methods of leadership or adventure ideas. He's slowly coming to the realization nobody there really likes how he runs things. I feel like he thinks he's part of the group, but he's not, because since he's the ringleader, there's that, imbalance of power, dynamic that makes things uncomfortable. And you can't really blame the characters for feeling this way. While he's not directly responsible as far as we know, he's an integral part of the hellish, digital world that they're in. A world that these characters are trapped in away from their human lives. Kinger in particular has been stuck there for years and lost his wife in the process. Kane tries to act like he doesn't care a couple times, but it's so obvious it's not the case. As by the end, where we get a little post-credit scene, Kane finds out nobody voted for him in the favorite character award show, causing his eyes to glitch out in a way we've never seen before. At this point, it feels pretty inevitable, either by the end of the next episode or at some point in episode 8, Kane is going to completely break down, abstracting in his own way. I imagine Kane can't abstract in the traditional sense, since he's not a former human, but whatever happens with him might as well be that. It'll just be far worse because the Digital Circus world, as we know, will suffer due to Kane's control over said world. The adventure this time around, like I said, is a shootout Cops and Robbers type game against teams of 2, Zubul and Gangle versus Ragatha and Kinger versus Pomni and Jax. Seeing more Zubul-Gangle interactions has been great. I'd argue these two have the closest relationships between anyone in the circus at this point. Seeing Gangle go from a super depressed punching bag to completely letting loose like that with the Tommy gun, as well as Zubul feeling like the most standoffish character in the series at the beginning to truly being there for Gangle whenever she's down, eventually making it to the top 3 in the gung battle where they managed to give Pomni and Jax a run for their money. Seeing the character whose whole thing was to not participate in the adventures, actually getting what felt like some semblance of enjoyment out of it by the end was great. Initially, Pomni suggested she and Ragatha team up together, but surprisingly Ragatha rejects the idea, this being because she didn't think it'd be fair if she or Kinger ended up with Jax. Pomni didn't even mind Ragatha's rejection either, but Ragatha's anxiety about this decision would fester throughout most of the episode, hindering her ability to focus on making progress for her team, besides that one fluke of her jamming Jax's gun with her finger. This lack of focus meant she would be the first one out in the game, sitting alone in the dark loser's corner, while those negative emotions about rejecting Pomni and the general relationship she doesn't feel like she has with the rest of the cast members would fester. It wasn't until Kinger got eliminated where her worries began to die down a bit. Man, Kinger is such an incredible character. It's honestly unbelievable how well-rounded this guy is. Not only is he, at least to me, the funniest character, but whenever it's time to, get serious and lock in, he's always there and delivers. He immediately picked up on how uncomfortable Ragatha was and approached the situation gently in hopes she'd open up naturally if she wanted to, venting about how she feels like she's failed Pomni and how nobody in the circus likes her, citing how Jax definitely hates her while Zubul and Gangle hardly even talk to her. Kinger assures her that it's okay to not always try so hard or to come on too strong, which was something Ragatha had struggled with since episode 1. Instead of letting certain interactions play out more naturally over time, she was always, needing to be the one to reach out to Pomni in some kind of capacity anytime they saw each other. As he says, relationships are a two-way street. You can't always be the one going 100% all the time when the other party involved isn't matching that same energy. It's fine to, give space every once in a while. He eventually tells Ragatha her arrival in the circus basically saved his life. The experiences he had in the circus prior to her arrival and the loss of his wife caused him to develop a case of self-hatred. This was easily one of my favorite interactions in the series so far, as it goes to show that despite his kooky antics, the show has written Kinger in a way over time to show us he's arguably the most most sane person in the circus, not the most insane. It's genuinely genius, it really is. Obviously, the meat of the episode focused on scenes with Pomni and Jax as a team for this adventure. Throughout the game, the two of them begin to bond quite a bit, Jax indirectly helping Pomni let her guard down some more. I've always kind of known this since episode 2 or so, but Jax's whole MO is to be as detached from reality or genuine human connections as humanly possible. This episode just happened to be the one to explore this mindset the most in depth. He's essentially accepted his fate of turning into a cartoon rabbit that's trapped in this digital world until further notice, so why not enjoy his time there in the best way he sees fit, even if it means messing with others. He sees himself as the quote-unquote funny one of the group, despite nobody else really feeling the same way. Pomni goes along with this mindset for a bit and takes on an evil persona in the process. Jax even starts to open up a bit about himself, specifically his fear of corn, which Pomni thinks could be a form of trypophobia since he mentioned not liking pomegranates too. It was around the time they cornered Zubul in their room where Jax started to notice what was happening with Pomni. He looked at the closed rooms of Kaufmo and his old Ribby friend and realized he was getting a bit too chummy with her, as if he was becoming genuine friends with her. Oh, that ain't gonna fly. So by the time the two of them managed to eliminate Zubul, Jax is acting standoffish again, claiming the two of them were never actually a team to begin with, and he doesn't care if Pomni takes the win for herself. If you couldn't tell by now, the heavy implication here seems to be the loss of Jax's friend Ribby traumatized the hell out of him, to the point where ever since that loss, he's gone to extreme lengths to make sure he never gets too close with anyone else ever again. The seeds for this mindset were planted all the way back in episode 2 when he didn't go to Kaufmo's funeral, and have now fully paid off here. I've already seen some people defending Jax's actions on Twitter, which is a take I don't really agree with, as there's a difference between understanding why a character does something and justifying those same actions. Sure, Jax went through a horrible loss that traumatized him, and this is the coping mechanism he's using, but it's a pretty terrible one, isn't it? Going out of his way to physically and mentally abuse the others around him out of fear of getting too close and leading to an abstraction isn't a good way of going about life here. Ragatha's overly clingy way wasn't really good either, but this is far worse. Honestly makes sense why these two are, always at each other's throats more than anyone else. Their viewpoints were complete opposites. But at least now it feels like Ragatha's talk with Kinger is going to put her on more of a well-rounded path. It's fine to think Jax is complex and still think he's a crappy person within the universe. The two can easily coexist. Which is why Pomni's crash out after they won the game felt justified. Because she's right, he was the one who reached out to her. So to suddenly pretend like nothing even happened is pretty fucked up. There's no other way around it. Jax tries to play it cool as long as he can, and I love how the episode highlights this through certain facial exchanges, during their conversation. Pomni will break through his mask for a split second, then it's like a switch goes off in his brain to act like he doesn't care again. Then there's the scene of Pomni wailing on him, and that was probably, the most uncomfortable I felt watching the show, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video. This show is no stranger to violence between its characters, but it's always been done with comedic intent. This was the first time two characters were fighting that had a completely opposite tone from what we've been used to for close to 2 years now. Ending the confrontation with Jax admitting he knows what he truly is, and there's no point of Pomni trying to find any deeper meaning with his personality. Which felt like it further implied Jax might have been part of, or the main reason his old friend Ribby abstracted in the first place. Part of me also thought Jax was going to abstract during that bathroom scene, by the way. I feel like it was meant to be, played out like that to put us viewers at the edge of our seats despite the intent of abstracting him, not actually being there yet. Still, this was easily the most vulnerable Jax had been to date. Dude had a full-on panic attack in there. But it seemed like things were back to normal with him by the time he got back to his seat. And by normal, I mean, putting his mask back on. Now that I think about it, the dynamic of Jax and Gangle being two sides of the same coin works too. As Gangle, a character with literal masks for faces, has shown over time she doesn't need to be tied to those masks, while Jax is constantly putting on his own mask of acting like he doesn't care out of fear of losing someone he becomes close with again. Incredible episode, as always. Might be my favorite one now. It really didn't have any low points for me. Let me know what you guys thought about everything in the comments below. I'd love to see. But for now, I will see you guys next time. Peace out, take care. Bye-bye.